Throughout history, societies have devised elaborate methods of punishment to maintain order and deter criminal behaviour. In Imperial China, one such device was the Cangue, a wooden apparatus worn around the neck, which functioned as both as a form of torture and public humiliation. Although it was not always intended to kill, prolonged exposure to the Cangue could lead to severe suffering, permanent injury, or death. Its use spanning centuries reflects the legal philosophies, social hierarchies, and cultural values of traditional Chinese society. The Cangue originated during the Tang dynasty, but became widespread during the Ming and Qing dynasties. Its roots are tied to Confucian principles, which emphasized social harmony, respect for authority, and public shaming as a tool for moral correction. Unlike purely physical punishments, such as whipping or amputation, the Cangue targeted the offender's reputation and dignity. The Chinese legal code, particularly during the Ming and Qing periods, carefully outlined punishment for various crimes. For minor to moderate offences such as theft, gambling, petty fraud, or disrespecting elders, the Cangue was seen as a fitting penalty. By subjecting offenders to both physical discomfort and public disgrace, it served as a visible reminder of the consequences of wrongdoing. A typical Cangue consisted of two large heavy wooden boards fastened together with an opening in the middle for the neck. The boards were usually rectangular, often measuring up to 1 metre in length and 80 centimetres in width, and they could weigh from 15 to 40 kilograms, depending on the severity of the punishment. The heavier the Cangue, the more torturous it became, as victims' shoulders, neck, and back bore immense strain. The boards were locked around the neck using iron fastenings or wooden pegs, preventing the wearer from removing the device without official permission. Offenders could not use their hands to scratch, feed themselves, or perform even the most basic personal tasks, leaving them dependent on the mercy of others. Some Cangues featured engraved inscriptions or placards detailing the wearer's crimes, ensuring that shame was attached not just to the individual, but also to their family. The Cangue was typically applied in public spaces such as marketplaces, village entrances, or temple courtyards. Offenders were forced to sit or stand for hours, days, or sometimes even weeks, depending on their sentence. In some cases, individuals were chained to posts, while in others they were left free to roam, though the sheer weight of the Cangue even made walking a rather arduous task. A standard punishment might last 3 to 7 days, but some cases recorded during the Qing dynasty mention sentences lasting up to a month, which could be deadly due to starvation, exposure to the elements, and infection from sores caused by the wooden boards rubbing against the skin. While the Cangue might appear less brutal than other historical punishments, its effects could be devastating. Firstly, there's physical strain. The heavy boards force the victim to adopt an unnatural posture, straining the neck and shoulders and spine. Prolonged use could cause nerve damage or even muscle paralysis. Also, starvation and dehydration was a problem. Since the wearer could not feed themselves, they relied on friends, family, or sympathetic strangers for sustenance. In times of famine or in cases of social ostracism, offenders could starve to death. Another problem was exposure. Prisoners wearing the Cangue were often left outdoors, exposed to intense sunlight, rain, or freezing temperature, leading to dehydration, heatstroke, hypothermia, or infection. But of course, another problem with the Cangue was public humiliation. The Cangue was designed as much for psychological punishment as it was for physical pain. The criminal's identity and offence were displayed for all to see, and onlookers frequently mocked, insulted, or spat on them. This combination of physical and mental torment meant that even short sentences were deeply traumatic. Although not originally designed as an execution tool, the Cangue could lead to death by neglect or exhaustion. In certain severe cases, offenders were deliberately left to die, either through prolonged exposure or starvation. Historical records mention criminals being paraded in Cangues until they collapsed, their bodies unable to endure the weight. In some extreme punishments, the boards were deliberately made so heavy sometimes exceeding 50 kilograms, that victims would slowly asphyxiate when they could no longer hold their heads upright. In a few documented cases, the Cangue was combined with other punishments, such as flogging or branding, increasing the likelihood of a fatal outcome. Now, as mentioned, the Cangue's widespread use was closely tied to Confucian social values. Public shame was seen as a powerful corrective force, discouraging others from committing similar crimes. By displaying offenders in the village square, authorities reinforced a clear message: social harmony depended on collective moral behaviour, and those who violated those norms would be disgraced in front of their community. Moreover, the Cangue was class-conscious. While commoners were subjected to the punishment regularly, the elite and wealthy could sometimes bribe officials to avoid such humiliation. In this sense, the Cangue was as much of a reflection of social hierarchy as it was a legal penalty. During the 19th century, Western travellers, missionaries and diplomats visiting China often recorded their observations of the Cangue. Many described it as a barbaric form of punishment, drawing comparisons to medieval European devices such as the stocks or the pillory. Photographs and sketches of prisoners wearing Cangues appeared in Victorian travelogues and newspapers, often reinforcing Western stereotypes about Oriental cruelty. However, some foreign observers noted that the Cangue was not necessarily more brutal than European punishments of the same period, such as public flogging or execution. They also recognised its role as a tool for public shaming, rather than outright torture, although the line between the two could easily blur. The use of the Cangue persisted well into the late Qing dynasty, but by the early 20th century, as China modernised its legal system under Western influence, the practice was increasingly criticised. Intellectuals during the later Qing reform movements and early Republican period viewed the Cangue as an archaic symbol of imperial despotism and feudal cruelty. Officially, the Cangue was abolished during the early years of the Republic of China in the 1910s and 1920s, replaced by modern incarceration methods. Nonetheless, in remote regions, reports suggest that similar devices were occasionally used by local authorities or vigilantes. Today, the Cangue remains a potent cultural symbol in Chinese historical memory. It appears in films, television dramas, and historical reenactments as a representation of the harshness of traditional justice. In literature and folklore, characters condemned to wear the Cangue are often portrayed as tragic figures, suffering not only from physical pain, but also from the crushing weight of public humiliation. Interestingly, the concept of the Cangue still resonates metaphorically in modern Chinese language and culture. The phrase "dai jia," meaning to wear the Cangue, can be used figuratively to describe someone burdened with shame, guilt, or moral responsibility. But let's compare the Cangue to similar devices used in Europe. Now there's the pillory. Offenders' heads and hands were locked in a wooden frame, often in public squares, exposing them to ridicule and assault. And there's also the stocks, similar to the pillory, but this typically only restrained the feet, forcing the offenders into uncomfortable positions. We could also compare it in a sense to shame masks, metal masks such as the skull's bridle, which was designed to humiliate offenders by making them appear quite ridiculous and telling everyone that they'd done something wrong. What set the Cangue apart was its mobility. Offenders were sometimes forced to walk through towns wearing it, and it was a mobile spectacle of disgrace, and its weight, which could be increased, would turn punishment into a slow, torturous suffering. The Cangue was more than just a device of wood and iron. It was an instrument of social control, a stage for public morality plays, and a reminder of the power of the state over the individual. Though less overtly violent than some execution methods, its combination of physical suffering, helplessness, and public shame made it one of the most feared punishments in Imperial China. Thanks for watching. To support our channel, please make sure to subscribe, and once again, thank you so much for watching.